Hi, Julie here from Copy What I Use for Teenage OCD and Anxiety. And in today's video, I decided to make it to actually share an experience that happened yesterday. This sort of was a stark reminder of how severe OCD is on not just the person who's got the OCD, but also on the siblings too. I mean, basically, we went out for a ride because, as you know, those of you who follow my videos will know my older daughter has got chronic OCD. She's a lot better than what she was now, but nevertheless, she still has her challenges. But she actually opened up for the first time yesterday and showed a very raw, vulnerable side to her, because generally she doesn't talk about her OCD or mental health at all. She prefers to just carry on as normal and not discuss it. But just by chance yesterday, she started to open up and she started to get upset and she said, I'm going to cry. I said, well, I'd rather you cry and just share with me exactly what this OCD has meant to you. And what she said was, I mean, basically she was trying to chat me into letting her have a tattoo because she's recently turned 18 and she wanted to have a tattoo of, not a normal thing like you'd imagine. I think if I was to ask you to guess what she wants as a tattoo, you'd never guess in a million years. Because basically, in a nutshell, she wants the Greek word for hand sanitizer, just etched in white so only she can sort of see it, just as a reminder of OCD. The reason she wants hand sanitizer in Greece, a bit of a funny story attached to it. We were on a Greek island the one time. And I mean, we can look back and laugh now because, as I say, she is a lot better now than what she was. But at that time, she was very ill with it. And one day were there frantically trying to get some hand sanitizer when we were out because she believed she'd become contaminated. And at that point, you've got to just immediately react. Otherwise, she goes into a meltdown. Anyway, you can imagine in Greece, this isn't an easy task, especially not speaking Greek. So we were going frantically around different chemists, different shops. Nobody knew what we were asking for, despite, trying to mime it and whatever else. We couldn't get much joy. Anyway, long story short, we finally got to this small pharmacy and the man actually directed us to, you've got a hand sanitizer. Well, Danielle was so excited. She said, please, she said, what is it called in Greek? I want to always remember what it's called in Greek. And basically, that's the story. She said, because although at the time it was quite frantic and not funny at the time that she'd run out and was feeling contaminated, the funny side was, I can remember me and you, Mum, she said, just laughing and being so relieved when we finally found out, A, what it was called for future reference, and secondly, that we'd managed to source this and everything became calm again. But in the process, and I said, well, why is it important for you to have this tattoo as a reminder? Well, she said, I think it's quite cute. Now, I can think of lots of names to call OCD, teenage OCD, but cute would never be one that would sort of instantly spring to mind. But anyway, for her, it was interesting because for her, it was cute. And should I want her as a reminder, Mum, she said. And I said, a reminder of what exactly? She said, to remind me how hard things were, she said, because I mean, in those days, you had to do really vigorous rituals. In fact, we were all involved with them, but they were really, I'm not going to go into detail because obviously that's her own private business. And this is something she keeps very private to herself, and that's something I have to respect. But nevertheless, suffice it is to say, she had to do some vigorous rituals, some of which involved being out in the cold before she could even enter the house. And she said, I remember, Mum, the feeling of being so cold. And then she said, no, and at the end of the process, I'd have to then put hand sanitizer on. And she said, I can't describe to you, Mum, she said, how cold the hand sanitizer felt on my hands. And she said, I would then, obviously she'd have to go then into the shower and do another set of vigorous rituals, which I think at one point was 32 steps. I don't know how many it is now, but it was 32 at that point, or something to that effect. And then she said, I'd go to my room, and she said, I would just hide then inside of my hoodie and my jogging bottoms, because she said I had to then go into my own world, into my own place. And she said that was my escapism, was then to feel safe within that hoodie and tracksuit bottom. But she said, well, although I say I feel safe, she said, then I would be down because I would already be going through the thought in my mind that I'd have to go through all of that again the following day, and the dread. And she said the feeling and the anxiety, because she does feel a cold and he always has since she's a baby. But she said the rituals were draining enough. But she said it was that knowing how cold I was going to feel and how cold that hand sanitizer was going to feel on my hands. And I thought it was really interesting because it was absolutely a nightmare. There are loads of things that I could recall that are my memories of OCD, and they're not something, but I had never thought of it from the cold aspect and the sort of perspective, from her perspective, and it was quite interesting. Anyway, later on the day, I took my other daughter, my younger daughter, for a ride then, because she knew that I'd taken my other daughter for a ride to calm her down when she was talking to me about her memories. And it was really interesting speaking to her, because one of her friends had said something to her, an old school friend from way back. And she'd said to her, actually I noticed, she said, you didn't come out much, she said, you're coming out a lot now and you're fun again. And she said, I noticed you didn't come out with us a lot, she said, when you were sort of between years 8 to year 10. And the interesting thing she said to me was, I thought it was down to lack of confidence or lack of friends or wherever. But the interesting point she made was that it was because she said, I needed to be there for my sister. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I wouldn't have gone out because she said at one point I was the only one she would allow to do things for her. And she said, I knew that I had to stay and I would always be there for my sister. And she said, she's a lot better now, so I feel I can go out. But she said, you know what, Mum? She said, if she became that ill again, I still would give up my social life and I would look after my sister. And that was quite heartbreaking on 2 counts. It was heartbreaking to actually hear the version from my older daughter, who was the actual OCD sufferer. But it was very, very interesting to hear the story from a different perspective from my younger daughter, who at one point was actually like a carer to her as well. And my lesson to you in this video is this. Teenage OCD doesn't actually just rob the child and the sufferer from a normal life, but it also impacts on siblings in the family to also robbing them of what we would deem as a normal life. So what I say to you is, if this sort of resonates with you in any way, whether your child suffers with teenage OCD or whether it's anxiety, join my group. I've got a link to it at the bottom because I'd be really interested to hear other people's take on this cruel illness and to see whether in some way we can raise awareness and help each other through difficult times. Okay, so that's it for today's video on teenage OCD and anxiety. Hope it's helped in some way. Please pop a thumbs up and a comment in the bottom if it has helped you. And what I'd ask you to do is to join my group if it does resonate with you in any way, and I say we can share tips and advice with each other. And I'll also put a link to my blog as well, because I've actually written blogs of actual techniques and things that we've used that we've found have helped not just the OCD sufferer but also the family as a whole. Okay, so thanks for watching. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.